morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Mays. I'm the Commissioner of the Connecticut Insurance Department, and thank you all for joining us today. This is the first next generation insurance and financial services professional career academy. In case you're wondering, you are the next generation, and I welcome you to this fantastic opportunity to learn what it's like to be in financial services, where you can do good and do well at the same time. Here in the insurance capital of the known universe, the future is exciting and it's yours. Everyone you hear from today, including me, has been where you are. A student in a degree program who is confident in all they have learned, but maybe a little unsure of their career path and where to look for an internship or employment. I walked in your shoes and I think it turned out just great. Now, I didn't get the chance to start out in insurance, a chance that you now have. It was a good friend to whom I will be forever grateful who suggested insurance to me mid-career, and my only regret is not having started sooner. The one bad thing about insurance is people don't understand how much it has to offer. Whether you want to be a data scientist, a marketer, an investment manager, or a million things in between, insurance offers you that chance and you get to do it while helping people. Now, this isn't a college forum or your typical career fair. The insurance and finance sectors provide great career opportunities, which will be all highlighted by our panelists today and tomorrow. We have numerous panels on various topics. Our expert panelists come from diverse educational backgrounds and experiences and are eager to share their insights with you. I won't go into details on the panels. I know you can see the list for yourself, and we're all eager to start, but there is one panel I have to mention: the power of networking. Whatever you do after today, wherever you go, networking is one of the most important skills you will learn. I found that it is a critical skill, a way of connecting that isn't taught in school, and bonds you with other like-minded people who share a common interest. Learn how to make friends, share ideas, and best utilize and maximize a group to further your interest, to learn, to advance your career. Your future is bright and wide open, and I know that because you're here. You've demonstrated that you are open and willing to learn. Now, the world I grew up in is far different from today's world, and when you're my age, your world will be very different from today's. Stay curious, stay flexible, and never, ever give up. I feel so privileged to be here with you today. You are our hope, you are our future, and in you, I see a bright future for us all. Thank you for being here. Now, please be sure to bookmark the NextGen community page, as we will update that page with upcoming events and resources we think you may be interested in. Now, I'm happy to declare this first NextGen Academy open. Let the learning and let your journey begin.
Next, we have the distribution panel moderated by Jim Lombardo.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're really excited that you're joining us today. I think today's panel is going to give you a really good insight into the insurance industry from a younger person's perspective, and also certainly introduce you to aspects of the insurance industry that you just might not be familiar with. I know a lot of times you see what's on TV, and you have a, kind of an impression of what happens from a sales standpoint, but we're going to talk to you a little bit more about the other operations within an insurance company. And we welcome any questions or comments you may have. You're going to be able to send some questions, but you'll have to register through your platform that you're viewing this from. My name is Jim Lombardo. I am the Director of Talent Development and Recruitment for the Big I Connecticut. Big I Connecticut is a not-for-profit trade association headquartered in Connecticut that works with independent insurance agents. We are there to support them with education, with advocacy, with marketing, and with data help. Today's panel, we are excited to be joined by Aisha Baber from Travelers and Porter Dowling from Chubb. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you, and we'll get into our program. So I'll turn it over to Aisha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aisha Joseph, formerly known as Aisha Babar. Sorry for the confusion. I got married last week. But I am an outside property unit manager in the Hartford, Connecticut Claim Center with Travelers Insurance. Currently, I have a team of 6 people that report to me. By reporting to me, we have outside claim professionals, which are just individuals that go outside and inspect people's homes or businesses after a loss occurs, so something like fire or water or something of that nature. Then I also have an outside claims content specialist that reports to me as well. She handles big contents losses. So all of your personal possessions, if you take your home and you turn it upside down and you shake it really vigorously, all that stuff that falls out, that's what Maria handles. So I have been with Travelers Insurance at this point for 6 years. I started my career in the auto blend department in the Metro New York, New Jersey Claims Center. Formerly was working in New York. I stayed there for about 2 years handling property damage, first party medical, and bodily injury claims. After that, I transitioned over to the property department. I was kind of tired of sitting in a desk. I wanted to wiggle around. If you can't tell, I have a lot of energy. So we came over to property, where I was an outside claim representative myself in the Manhattan area primarily. So I went to condos and co-ops throughout the city and handled water losses predominantly, fire, smoke, and other hazards as well. I soon transitioned to the Westchester territory, where I started to handle commercial businesses and personal insurance as well. So again, looking at those businesses after a loss occurred to check out their damages, write estimates for their claim, and then pay accordingly. After I was in the New York, New Jersey Claim Center, I moved over to Connecticut when this opportunity presented itself to me. And I have been in the Connecticut Claim Center now for about 1.5 years as property outside unit manager. That's a little bit about me. Prior to coming to Travelers, I was an engineer and housekeeping manager at the Parker Meridian Hotel in Manhattan. So I spent a few years there after college, and then I transitioned over to the insurance industry.
Well, great, Aisha, thank you. And congratulations on your marriage. I was confused by the name that showed up on the screen, so my apologies for that, but that's awesome.
Thank you.
Before I introduce Porter, I guess it's for those of you who are not familiar with the process, right? So you submit an application to the insurance agency, the insurance company, and you hope you don't have a claim, but that's what insurance is for. So when you have a claim, that's where Aisha comes in. But who receives the application? Who reviews the application? Who makes sure that you have proper rating, proper coverages, the information that is being presented is accurate? That's the underwriting side of the house. And let me introduce you to Porter Dowling at this point.
Great. Thanks, Jim. So my name is Porter Dowling. I am a commercial middle market underwriter, and I work for a company called Chubb Limited. So what that means is that I underwrite and provide insurance coverage policies for businesses and corporations with revenue between $5 million and $1 billion. Now, that's a pretty overall broad amount. So it's really just saying any commercial business would ultimately come to me. Now, unlike Aisha, I'm actually been with Chubb since I got out of college. So I've been with them now for 5 years. And the way that my career started, I was a professional associate and had training in our New Jersey corporate office, and then ultimately moved up to Connecticut in our New Haven location as an underwriter. And for me, because I'm in commercial insurance, that means that I would look at anything from property underwriting to general liability, to workers' comp, to auto insurance. But kind of fundamentally, what my job is that I would evaluate a company's risks which we'd say is their exposure. I guess a simple example to that could be that, a property is located in the Florida coast, therefore it has significant risk of hurricanes or winds. And then I would take those risk factors to determine the likelihood of financial loss or expense to that company, and whether or not my company would want to indemnify, i.e. pay for that loss. And then from there, procedurally, we would decide whether or not we'd underwrite it, and then try to craft a policy program for that insured. And then there's the kind of other part of my job, which is sales and distribution. So for me, I'm a non-direct carrier, which means that I don't provide insurance directly to a client. So I would have to work with an agent or producer who is licensed in order to provide the product to the insured.
Great, thanks, Porter. And I will just say that, early in my career, many years ago, I was an underwriter, and what a great introduction to the insurance industry. I did personal underwriting. So when Porter talks about commercial, he's talking about business. But what underwriting allows you to do is just take a look at what's being offered, right? If your insurance is the transfer of risk. So in essence, the client has this risk and is asking the insurance company to take this risk from me and be there for me in the event I have a claim, so you can indemnify us or make me whole again. And when I was an underwriter, I was taught to think about it as my money, right? It's not Porter's money that's on the line, but it actually is the company's money that Aisha would be paying out eventually. But we were all taught to think about, would you take this risk? If it was your money, if you were backing it, how would you handle it? So I'm going to stick with you, Porter. And can you give us what's a typical day? And I understand the insurance industry, there really might not be a typical day, which is part of the excitement about it. But generally speaking, walk us through, your 9 to 5 day.
Yeah, of course. So there's kind of a couple of components, but for me, I have what we'd call a book of business. So what that is a number of clients that on an annual basis, I would underwrite and renew their policy. So kind of on a typical day, I'd be going through upcoming policies that have effective dates within, a usual couple of months, and work alongside one of our producers in order to, prep for the insured to be presented that renewal account. And then as well, I'd be also kind of evaluating some new business opportunities. So a producer would send or provide me with a business that I would go through the underwriting procedure to look at whether or not we'd be interested in the account, and decide whether or not to proceed on that end. And then I guess the other piece for the distribution side is it's very common that I would go out and visit one of our partner producers to sort of have these discussions in person. So, like you said, I don't think there's really a consistent given day for my job, just because of all the different components to it. But, when it comes down to it, all has something to do with the underwriting aspect of a new or renewal opportunity.
And what tools or education do you need, or did you attain to reach the level of where you are now?
Yes, so there are a variety, and I know this is going to be discussed, I believe, on a later panel of forms of designations. So it's very common that a company will ask you to complete certain exams. So prior to getting your promotions on the underwriting side, and I know that that's also very similar for Aisha and the claims perspective. So that's kind of a way to continue to grow your learning and your understanding on how kind of risk management takes place. Now, myself, it is actually common that some people will actually have risk management as a major in college, but a big portion of the majority, I don't think usually are in that group, like myself. So you sort of, as you're working and getting more experience and growing your relationships within your region, you're also taking a variety of classes and exams to sort of grow their overall understanding of how insurance works from a more functional standpoint.
Great, thank you. Hold on to that thought because we're going to get into how you found yourself in insurance. But Aisha, I'm going to same questions with you. Can you give us, a typical day, and then eventually, what kind of tools or education you needed or attained to get to where you are today?
Wonderful. So in a typical day in my life right now would be a little bit different than a typical day in the life of a property outside claim rep. So I'll give a little bit about what I do day to day and then a little bit about what a claim rep would do. So for a unit manager, a big thing or a big part of my job is just to ride along with my team, see kind of what they're doing out in the field, how I can work and help train and develop them in order to teach them various efficiencies, and just make sure that we're compiling a full scope and making sure that we're like everything has all the damages in it and that we're paying what we owe and when we owe it. I also look over coverages with our team. Sometimes we get into some situations that are a little more complex than that regular fire or water loss. So I'll meet with my team and go over the loss and all the facts of the loss, and then go over the policies as well and compare them in order to make sure that we do or don't have coverage for whatever specific claim and provide guidance and support to them. Any payments over my team's authority, I'll look over the estimates for them. I'll review them to make sure that they're in line and warranted, and then I will assist with releasing those payments as well. So as a manager, my overall job is just to support my team. What they need and how they need it, I need to be there in order to do so, just to make sure that they're successful and are able to get their job done with the most efficient way possible. As a claim rep, the job's a little bit different. So what my team does is that every day they come to work and they get losses throughout the day or claims throughout the day as they come up. So the insured will call in and they'll report a claim, something happened to either their home or their business to Travelers. Travelers then will assign that claim to somebody on my team. And when they get the claim, their first thing is that they're going to make contact with that insured to make sure that we understand what happened, make sure our insureds are safe. If they need alternative living or something of that nature, we make sure to support them in that way. And then they schedule an inspection. We do have various tools and resources available to us. We can do virtual inspections from the comfort of the insured cell phone and our computers, or we can go out if the loss is a little bit more severe and we can inspect those people's properties in person. Once they inspect the property and they see the damages, they then scope everything out, they measure it, they take their photos and they compile an estimate in a software called Xactimate. And then we pay what we owe. So then they cut a check to the insured and hopefully their file is closed. If there are some outstanding items like an asbestos test or a mold test or something of that nature, they'll review it at that time and they will add on a supplemental payment should it be necessary afterward. But they work with the insured and their contractors should anything come up or arise that we don't know, and then we support the insureds through that claim process. So pretty much we financially handle the responsibilities of the insured if the policy permits, and then they work with their contractors with that amount in order to get everything restored back to their liking. So kind of what Jim was saying earlier, we indemnify our insureds. So we make them whole again. We bring them back to their pre-loss condition. And that's pretty much the day of the job.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
This is a question for both of you that you might not have been expected, but you both mentioned. Can you tell us quickly the role that technology plays? Now, I had a claim and I actually submitted it through my phone. I took pictures and walked with the claims adjuster. But can you tell both of you, I'll start with Aisha, what role does technology play in your day-to-day? And then I'm going to go to Porter with the same question.
So every day that passes, technology plays a bigger role at Travelers because we continue to add new technology and new tools to our wheelhouse as time go on. But currently, kind of what I was stating, we have the ability to do virtual inspections. So we use Claim Experience, which is an application on your phone, and you can virtually inspect. So the insured can walk the claims adjuster around their house and they can take photos of the damages. And with that, we just have common knowledge of standard sizes of certain things, and we're able to compile an estimate based upon that inspection. We also are working with a company called Hover. And what that is actually the insured or the claim rep will take 8 pictures around the perimeter of an insured's house for any exterior or outside claim. And then once we have those 8 pictures and we submit them, normally about within an hour, we actually get a full 3D model of the insured's house. So we'll have all the measurements of the roof, all the measurements of the siding, everything that you could possibly imagine. So if we need to reside one elevation or an entire house or one slope of a roof or the entire roof, we have all of those measurements. Kind of what Jim was saying, you can report your claims online. We have an app through Travelers. We have a website where you can call in. So whatever way works for you. But insureds also have the ability to upload through those apps and things like that. So you can use your cell phone. We use technology just every day in our day-to-day because we use our computers, we use laser tape measures. Our computers have Wi-Fi built into them. So there's a lot of technology.
So
day-to-day.
ultimately the claims get handled quicker.
Yes.
And probably more efficiently. That's awesome. Porter, same thing with you on the receiving of the application side, and then you doing your underwriting and your inspections. What role does technology play with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, it's pretty substantial. I mean, from the underwriting side, I guess one of the best kind of examples is just our internal underwriting tools. So even since I started, in the past, the approach used to be, there's these things you'd fill out called accords that would ask specific questions, underwriting related questions that would be provided from the possible future insured. But now we actually have tools where we have hired data scientists that create these data scraping tools that will go into certain search engines like Google or Yahoo, and then we'll come back and provide a variety of data points on the insured before we've even taken a look at the accord and the questions that we have on the account. So, it's given us the opportunity to look at, certain variables on the possible future insured that, before we even receive the account. And then I guess more on the, from the selling or the product side, I mean, there's been a significant push forward in terms of the overall speed of the turnover for the products. I mean, in the past, you'd be looking at a certain account and it could take you 5 to 6 to 7 days to go through operations to get an actual pricing for the account. Now we have, a B2B, business to business product that can roll over the account in less than 30 seconds. So, I mean, from an operations side, as well as sort of an internal underwriting analysis standpoint, the technology has changed dramatically, even since I started, which was only a couple of years ago. And that's just going to continue to be a kind of critical part on the efficiency for these major carriers like Travelers or Chubb.
Thank you. And he mentions, data analytics, and I can tell you that one of the fastest growing areas in the insurance industry is data analytics. Forensics and fraud evaluation is one of the fastest growing as well. And so that kind of just falls in line with what I said at the beginning when we opened this segment, that there's so many parts and so many facets to the insurance industry that most people just don't know. But already we've talked about technology, we've talked about the education that's required, we've talked about data analytics, we've talked about the different people that do different jobs. That being said, so Porter, let me start with you. When and how did you get into insurance? I'm going to imagine when you were a 12-year-old little boy, you didn't say, I want to be in insurance. So how did you end up, where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and you'll probably hear this joke more often that with insurance, you either stumble into it or you have family members in the industry. I guess in my case, I had several family members who were in the industry in some manner or another, as well as growing up right outside of Hartford. Kind of insurance was always around me. But I will say that, yeah, definitely in college, I sort of wanted to go to law school. So I wasn't necessarily picturing myself to go into the insurance industry. But, I'd say what ultimately pulled me in was that all of the internships I had during college, being from the Hartford area, I interned with Travelers my junior year. I also interned with One Beacon the prior year to that it sort of gave me the firsthand experience on what it's like to work for an insurance company, and subsequently, why I ultimately decided to go into insurance right after I graduated from college.
Great. And Aisha, you already said that you started in the hotel industry. And so how did you end up in insurance?
Yes. So when I went to college, I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey in human resource management and psychology. I was provided the opportunity.
So psychology helps you really good with claims. That's a good
It
one.
does, honestly. It's great. It's sometimes I'm a counseling service.
I bet.
It definitely comes in handy. But my mom was actually a general manager at a different hotel, and that's how I got my foot in the door in the hotel industry. So straight out of college, I went to the hotel industry, and I was a salaried employee working insane hours. My normal shift was 3 to 11 at night, and anything that would arise, I would have to stay overnight. So I was just there working nonstop. It's a 24-hour business, and the hotel's open, which it always is open. I was pretty much working. So my brother actually was recruited by Travelers through a career fair at Stony Brook University on Long Island. He started working at Travelers 10 months prior to me. And he called me one day, and I guess my mom was upset, to be honest with you. I missed Christmas for like the third year in a row. And he was like, aren't you tired of like working too much and missing holidays and mommy complaining? And I was like, I am. He's like, well, Travelers is hiring somebody in the auto blend department. So I was like, what's an auto blend department? He was like, I don't really know. I work in operations, but find out. So here I am 6 years later, still at Travelers, but that's kind of word of mouth, not anywhere like Jim was saying that I expected myself to be or where I expected myself to be. But I can tell you that my life is a lot more stable. I have a lot more work-life balance, and my mom's happy because I haven't missed Christmas.
Good for you. Good for you. So let's stay on that, Aisha. So tell our audience, some of the benefits or some of the nice things about working for Travelers. And you talk about work-life balance and just kind of how does that, some of the benefits that they offer you, how's that work?
So our benefit package at Travelers is amazing. Kind of comparatively to the hotel industry. When I worked at the hotel, I had to work for a full year, and then I was provided 10 days of PTO time, but I didn't get any in that full year because you had to accrue your time. With Travelers, my first day, I remember I was sitting in HR and they said, you start with 2 days of PTO. It's like, but it's day one. She's like, yeah, take them tomorrow if you want. And that started off. So as you accrue time with Travelers, the time is readily available to you. So you have PTO time or paid time off from day one, starting with 2 days. And new employees, I think, go upwards to about 20 days. So we have that available from the first year. And then there's pension benefits that not all companies have. We have 401k programs. And like we were saying earlier, just the work-life balance, you're kind of expected to work, do your job, but make sure that you use your PTO. If you don't use it, you lose it. So you want to make sure you take that time off, kind of recenter yourself and enjoy time with your family and friends. So that to me was the biggest benefit, the time off, and that it's available to you and it's expected to be used.
Absolutely. Porter, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a pretty good comparison that Travelers and Chubb have pretty similar overall options. I mean, there's also, other financial benefits, like regardless of your point in your career, they've got, stock matching options where you can invest in the company and get, an pretty immediate return with 15% debit on the stock value, which is great for any level employee. I mean, yeah, the matching for retirement is, you can get up to 12% of your overall income matched on an annual basis. There's also a ton in the, our foundation is also something that a lot of people take advantage of, where every employee has the ability to get up to $20,000 of matched donations that they give to their community. So if you're donating a couple $100, your company will match up to that number. So, I mean, there's a ton of great, financial benefits, along with, as Aisha was saying, is that, certain times of the years you have to work hard. You got long weeks every now and then, but it's definitely a good overall work balance. And they want to make sure you take advantage of things like your PTOs and use them for your personal time.
Great. So we have 5 minutes left. Let me ask you both. And I'm going to combine the two. So my first part of the closing comments for you is, can you tell the audience, one thing that a really cool thing that happened at work that you remember, maybe your most proudest moment, or just kind of a unique, neat, thing that you were involved in. And then secondly, end it with, any words of advice for that senior in college or that junior in college right now that's listening in, or somebody that, just got out of college, is not sure where he or she wants to work. Aisha, I'll start with you, and then make sure we give Porter enough time as well.
Perfect. So my favorite incident, or it was not my favorite incident, but my favorite claim that I handled was for an individual in New York. It was a couple, and the husband was 89 years old and the wife was 87, and they had a fire and it affected their house with smoke and water from the fire department. And they moved into that house on the day they got married 50 something years ago. So when I tell you they were distraught, they were so distraught when it happened, and watching us rebuild their home and all of the sentimental things for them, and seeing how anxious they were at the beginning and transform into so appreciative at the end. That was probably the most impactful claim for me. And just
That's
watching that felt amazing. It felt like I did something right.
And I'll just interrupt you. That's what insurance does, right? We get people back to being whole again. That's a great story. I'm glad you shared that.
Thank you. And then just in terms of words of advice, make sure that you go into something with open minds and open eyes. Like we were kind of saying, nobody goes into the insurance industry saying, this is what I want to do for a living, but it's not nearly as boring as it sounds. You meet such unique individuals in all different walks of life, and it's a completely rewarding and fulfilling experience. So I definitely say, keep your eyes and ears open for opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you. Porter, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say mine's also, for me, it was just kind of as a lark. The first account I ever wrote ultimately resulted in the biggest loss in term or indemnification of any of the insurance I've ever involved with. And it was just kind of, so it was this prototype design company for advertising products. Like they would take like Captain Morgan signs and they'd go and test them at like a Walmart or a Stop and Shop. And they had these electrical scooters stored in their basement, which has lithium batteries, which can't be exposed of without going through a necessary process. And then a couple of weeks after I wrote my first account, it resulted in what became an $8 million total loss. But it was kind of one of those things where just there are so many components and qualitative characteristics to underwriting, and there's something new whenever you're underwriting. Whatever industry it might relate to. And I think that makes the job constantly fun and interesting. And I think that people commonly don't realize that until they actually, receive first-time experience. And then in terms of recommendation, I'd say that, there is so much opportunity within the industry. I mean, my company, they will tell us pretty regularly that by 2025, 30% of our company's employees will be at retirement age. So, I mean, if you're looking for working for some type of corporation with a job that's, analytical, fascinating, or you enjoy sales or claims or whatever it might be, there's so much opportunity in the industry. And I think until you actually, take a deeper dive in understanding that, you'll realize what's there in the insurance industry.
Thank you. Great for sharing. And just in closing, so I'll just say a couple of things. In a very short period of time, both of these people have been promoted, I think, more than once. And so I think that's a good sign to share. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people my age in the insurance industry that do indeed want to and will be retiring in the next few years. And we need people to come in and fill our slot. And as closing comments, I just want to thank both of these panelists. I really enjoyed doing this today. I'm glad I was asked to do that. I enjoy doing it because I want to give back to what a wonderful career and industry I've been involved in for the last, well, let's just say a number of years. And it's been good to me and my family. I've helped a number of people over the years get their life back in order and get their feet back on the ground. And that's what insurance is about. And I'm really glad we are able to end it in that fashion. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat box. We're going to memorialize all this and you'll be able to have access to it later. Turn it back over to Lady.
Thanks everyone for the great discussion, and stay tuned for our next panel on data analytics. The following panel on data analytics will be moderated by Dr. Ning Jai.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ning Jia. I'm from University of Hartford. I'm currently an assistant professor here, as well as the director of business analytics at both the undergraduate and graduate level. I originally got my PhD from University of Minnesota, and since then, I've mostly worked as a data scientist in the fields of biostatistics, public health, insurance, marketing, as well as healthcare. We're going to talk about the job market in data analytics today. And as most folks probably know, it is growing almost exponentially. Next, I'm going to quickly introduce my fellow panelists. First, Mr. Brendan Shea, who's the Vice President of Business Performance Management at United Healthcare. Brendan, would you give us a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. Brendan Shea. I've got a little bit over 30 years experience in insurance and financial services in the Hartford and Connecticut markets. I've worked at quite a few places that are very familiar to folks, but for the last 10 years, I've been at United Healthcare as a Senior Director of Data Analytics. I did get my undergraduate degree at Trinity College in philosophy.
Thank you, Brendan. We also have Anthony Senseman here. Anthony, who's actually a junior at our university.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Anthony Senseman. I'm a junior at the University of Hartford. I'm majoring in finance and math. This past summer, I was at the Hartford in market risk within enterprise risk management. And currently, I am the president and founder of Q Squared, which is a student faculty research organization that specializes in doing quantitative and qualitative research, specifically in business analytics, operations research, and quantitative finance.
Thank you, Anthony. So jumping to the questions regarding the job market in business, in data analytics here. So I'll start with you, Brendan. You've got so much experience, you follow through basically, I'm sure, all the generations of data applications, in these big corporations, local big corporations here. And I just wonder, through your years of experience, first of all, how do you see that data analytics and their applications have changed, evolved throughout the years? Both in the way that the analysis are carried out, as well as how they actually are applied to business decision making.
That's a great question. So when I first started, we could only deal with very small data sets. The technology was limited. You were looking at thousands of rows of data, typically in a Lotus 1-2-3 environment. This is before we even had Microsoft, really. My first job actually was working with punch cards, believe it or not. So I've been around for about a while. But over time, what's been happening is the ability to deal with larger and larger data sets and look at more comprehensive experiences. So instead of samples of things here and there and making assumptions based on samples, we're able to look at more complete data sets. And we're also able to join the data sets with other data much more easily across environments. There's a lot more public data available to substantiate what's going on and validate certain key assumptions. So really, I'd say that the technology advances are really the big difference. I think if you go back to the way we used to do it, it really hasn't changed much. There's still looking at a business assumption, trying to validate it or invalidate it with as much information as we can find. So process hasn't changed, but certainly the technology and the available tools has really moved forward.
And as you say, the technology has moved forward, and maybe the way, people form their assumptions have changed. What kind of the talent, that's required for this kind of work? How do you think that has evolved?
Another good question. The talent, So the first thing I look for, and I do hire a lot of folks in data analytics, data science, reporting, and so forth. The thing I look for most is a sense of curiosity about the business and about the data available. So I really want someone who's going to ask, why does it look this way? What are the outliers? How much is there? Is it homogeneous or heterogeneous data? And what can we do with it? So as you really approach it from that perspective, that's a skill or a trait of someone. It's not necessarily something that can be taught in class. Over time, we've seen various technologies come and go. There's, big data is a thing right now where we can work with extremely large data sets. Some of the current technologies, Python, R, those are coming up, and I'm sure there'll be new things in the future. So when I look for a resource, I'm not necessarily looking for someone who knows this skill. I don't need a Tableau developer per se. If you know how to use a business intelligence tool, if you happen to use Tableau, that's great. Maybe we're going to move to Power BI or MicroStrategies or some other tool. Doesn't really matter. What I'm looking for is the ability to apply the knowledge of how to use a tool and address that business problem with that curiosity around why is it doing what it's doing? And how do I present that information to my business folks so that they can make better decisions?
Totally agree. And I also wonder, so these are the qualities you can discover in, some new hire after you have been working with them for a while. I just wonder, what are some of the essential qualities you would check, when they get hired, when you're interviewing them, especially for entry-level, positions?
Yep. One of the things we definitely look for is any kind of experience in the space. So demonstrate some curiosity, whether it was research done as part of an undergraduate program or clubs and things you've gotten into. It could just be a curiosity you have. Maybe you wanted to see how does the COVID virus progress across the US. Look at some data, chart it out, see what it looks and feels like. Obviously, a big leg up for any entry-level person is internships. So if you've had an internship in a business and you've worked with customers trying to understand what's going on, that's always a great asset to bring to the table. But really, just anything that helps demonstrate that curiosity.
And you have mentioned that there are these internship opportunities at United Healthcare. And what are some of the bigger events that our students can go to find out such opportunities or interview for such opportunities?
Sure. There's really kind of two that I would point out. One, unfortunately, it's probably already passed for this year. We begin on-campus recruiting through job postings, through career offices at many of the local colleges. Central is big, University of Hartford's big, UConn is big. I personally go over to Trinity, my alma mater, and talk to folks there. So if that's already been an opportunity that you didn't know about, there are jobs posted there and you can apply to those. If you make it through the screening, we would invite you to our campus, do on-campus interviews, and then make final decisions. In our finance area, where I am based out of, we typically hire about a dozen interns a year. We interview in September and October, make those decisions, and you'll know before Thanksgiving whether you're going to be offered that 10-week internship program over the summer. The last piece we do have is the Connecticut IFS has a Get Hired job fair, typically right at the beginning of January, downtown Hartford, and there'll be literally hundreds, if not thousands, of folks who come in. Almost every major company in the Hartford area is represented, and you can bring a stack of resumes, wait in line, talk to someone about your interests and opportunities, and they'll help you get to the right areas and right places. And we do hire into our internship program from the career fair as well.
Wonderful. I have also participated in some intern hiring process. I feel it's almost harder than getting a full-time job in many ways. And I wonder, so how do our students get through the screening process, usually? what's the common requirements here?
It's really, there are some basic internship requirements depending on the company. I believe we have a 3.5 GPA, and it would be for rising juniors and seniors. It's a little bit tougher to get in as a rising junior, but if you do, if you're interested in coming back as a senior, most folks are actually offered a second time with our company, and usually it's a different rotation. So if you were in more of a core finance forecasting area, you might end up in my analytics team. So we try to round folks out and give exposures to see what they would want to do as well as what we can do with them. Our internships are real jobs. This is not making coffee or filing stuff or making, doing things like that. You are an actual member of the team. You will produce real results that go to our customers to help them make better decisions.
Wonderful. And I believe there are some also maybe young professionals here joining our panel besides, college graduates, fresh graduates. I wonder, you have shared with me, one of the, job ads for, possibly such a young professional with a couple of years experience. We cannot share the screen here, but I just want to quickly go through, what I see as the basic qualifications. This is for, I believe, business analyst position. So, there are, of course, these software programming kind of requirements, SQL, Power BI, Excel, VBA, and so on, and the knowledge of program support, monitoring and issue solutions, and so on. There are also the preferred qualifications, Linux, Python, R, Hadoop, Git, and the Docker, and finance and health insurance experience, strong communications and documentation skills. So a lot of skills, included here. And I wonder, what do you think are the most essential skills? Besides the skill, the most essential quality, as you have mentioned earlier, which I totally agree, is a curiosity for the business, curiosity to find the right kind of solutions. So for young career professionals interested in the area, may not be looking for the most basic entry-level position. What are some of the common skills that you have seen that's required, or you think that's desirable?
Yep. So it's some basic familiarity, although this particular job application says Microsoft tools. If it happened to be Oracle tools instead, that's fine. Those are substitutes. I think we said Power BI. If you had Tableau instead, or MicroStrategy or something, those are fine. SQL is kind of a basic thing. It's been around for a long time now. Some familiarity with that. That's how you're going to get the data out of all the big systems, whatever they are, and bring them into your analysis. So some familiarity. Again, this is not strictly entry level. So someone who's kind of been in the data space should have been exposed to that. But if I'm looking more at traits, it's that the desire to learn. So, today it's some of those preferred qualifications in Linux, Python, R, Hadoop, Git, things like that. Tomorrow, I don't know what it's going to be. 2 years ago, folks didn't really look at Python. We were developing in Perl and Ruby and other things. And before that, it was C#. And before that, I don't even recall. But so don't get hung up on a technology. Don't say I'm going to make my career by being the best Python person there is, because 2 or 3 years from now, that may not be important. It may be something totally different. So be open to that. See what's coming, and strive to stay in touch with what's happening.
And a related question, Brandon, I feel there are really so many jobs available in this field, but because I advise my master's students too often for their career, career change. Some of want a total career change, or just want to move into more data-centric roles. I advise them on, these, looking for a new job too. What I have realized is that, everyone wants, 3 to 5 years of experience, but and there were so many jobs, and they all want 3 to 5 years of experience. I don't think there are that many people with 3 to 5 years experience. So I don't quite know how the initial screening happens. Some company probably has just machine reading, doing some text mining, going through the initial screening. And how is it done at United Healthcare for these little bit, so for such a position, for example, besides looking at your qualification, how is the screening process, done?
So that is true. 3 to 5 years seems to be a sweet spot that a lot of companies are looking for. I think in my case, we really look to grow our own. So this position we have posted right now is a data analyst. A year from now, it may be a data scientist. So if the person who gets the role is much more in tune with machine learning, AI development, they're really pushing the envelope on the statistics side of things and takes the role in that position, we'll change it and turn it into a data scientist role. But if I'm trying to come right out and hire a data scientist, it's much more difficult because of those 3 to 5 years and the number of things you're looking for. Whereas I'd rather teach someone who wants to learn it. You don't necessarily have to have it, but have a desire to move in the space.
That's a great way to grow, grow talent, within your own space. That's wonderful. So I feel, when I advise my students, and really I'm amazed at the kind of jobs they get these days because there's such a huge demand, and especially female students, I realize that they, unless they meet all of the criteria, they don't apply for a job. And I just wonder if for folks who go out to find people, with 2 to 5, 3 to 5 years of experience, or in this position, a little bit more basic position, like when you screen the candidates, like what percentage of what's the average percent of qualification that do they meet? Do they meet 80% on average or 70%?
That's a tricky question because it really kind of depends on our HR folks. So we have to work with them and they tend to rotate fairly quickly. So it takes me a while to get an HR person up to speed. Like the examples I've used, if we've said Power BI and you send me a resume that's got 3 years of Cognos instead or MicroStrategies, HR is going to go, oh, no match, throw it away. And I'm going to go, wait a second, it's the same thing. It's just a different version. So, getting them to understand that is really critical. But, and again, don't get hung up on any one particular thing, but there's sort of the classes of stuff. So in this job, if you have some SQL experience, you've used a business intelligence tool, you're competent with Microsoft Excel, can do a pivot table and, a VLOOKUP type thing, you're qualified. The rest of the stuff is a little bit subjective, but certainly would at least get to the interview stage, with that. Now, this last role we did post, I had about 150 applicants. So there is a wide number of people looking. We shortlisted to 8 and going through an interview process with 5 right now.
Wonderful. Wow, 150, huh? Wow, it's good to hear, actually, for you guys. So now I'm gonna move on to Anthony. Anthony, you had an internship at the Harvard, you have mentioned, and that's in a very essential kind of a division, enterprise risk management. So that's a great opportunity. I wonder, how you, applied and, got into the position.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was an example of the 2 essential things, which is relationship building and demonstrating your passion in a material way. So this is, as Brendan just shared, with 150 applicants per position, it is very competitive to make it through that first screening. So I had the best luck by using my time to delve into some personal projects that were relevant to what I was trying to do. and talking about those in an interview in an intelligent manner, making it clear that you actually know what you're talking about and you didn't just Google, what to say when this is asked. Because I feel for me, in my experiences, that curiosity that he was talking about is essential because you have to keep pulling the string to see exactly what's going on. So in my experience in interviews, that's kind of the format, is just answering questions about yourself and seeing how far down each path that I've gone.
So Anthony, when you joined, as an intern, to the Harvard position, you mentioned there are also some peers, of yours that joined at the same time, and they have very varied background. Like, what kind of background did they have?
So my intern group consisted of myself, which is finance and math, I think industrial engineering, business, and data analytics. So from all walks of life, it seems.
I see. Are they all rising junior or senior, or are they?
For this individual class, they were all rising juniors. So I actually added some time to my undergrad because I added the math degree. So I get an extra summer, but the rest of my class was juniors.
And like, what's like roughly your experience there with data? What were the big projects without delving into details? Like, what kind of tools did you use? What size data did you analyze?
Yeah, so it was a great experience because I went in primarily knowing Python and some C++ and of course Excel, more general purpose programming languages, and then Excel. And what the Hartford in my division actually used was R. So just like Brendan was talking about, different tool, same application. So you spend the week or whatever learning it, and then just applying the same concept. So the projects that I was working on was related to forecasting economic scenarios. So I was using economic data in order to find out how likely certain situations could be, certain forecasts. And those forecasts were then related to the specific line of business, in my case, the commercial mortgage loan investment team, so that they could set aside capital. So in general, the types of projects that were being worked on were surrounding using data in order to make more informed decisions. And my job for the summer was to automate a certain process so that we could use our human capital, we could use our employees' brains for thinking about how to solve these problems in the future and having the tasks be automatically done. So we weren't wasting time, recreating the same Excel sheet over and over and over again.
That's definitely one very important application. And I wonder, as you were applying the data, were you using some advanced statistical theory, machine learning methods, any of those?
So for my specific project, I would say it required upper intermediate statistical knowledge. I didn't get into any machine learning applications, but one of my other interns did use machine learning in order to take in an initial bucket of variables and filter through them to see which ones were the most applicable. So that project was trying to figure out what different economic variables gave more information derived to a different problem they were working on. So really interesting stuff, but it was made abundantly clear that if you don't have the specific tools, you can learn them quickly. Learning R for what I needed took about a week, of diligent work, but still, I think understanding the concepts was the most important part.
Oh, wonderful. And now with this experience, do you see, how this is going to prepare you for your, actual job after you graduate? Does this, steer you more towards that direction, or are you looking for just in general, maybe a different direction? How do you think that prepared you?
That's a great question, because it was my first experience to apply my analytical data skills in a professional environment. So it absolutely shaped what I wanted to do in the future. I still want to do something similar, but getting experience with using these tools and how those tools influence decisions helped me see the broader picture of what was going on. So I would say that having an internship in a related field is the best thing that I've done in my college career as far as preparing me for the decision of what I want to do afterwards.
And I know that, with the finance plus math background, you might be interested in going, in the quant direction. And will you be exploring internships, in that field? Do you know of, what the competition might be like, what folks' background will be like in that field?
Absolutely. That is what I plan to do. And that's why I added the math, because when you get into the more the solely quantitative finance work, the math is a prerequisite. And math is very difficult to self-teach, at least to the end of the undergraduate level. So that's why I had to add it on. And as far as competition goes, it's a very well-trodden path, and the recruiting process is very well outlined. It's a difficult process, but the information is out there as far as what you need to know and what experiences you need to have beforehand.
You touch upon something very important, that is just, for example, math is something very hard to self-teach. And I want to go back to Brendan quickly. Brendan, I wonder, so from your observation from all these data applications, what are some of the harder skills to acquire after you start to work full time that would still be essential to your type of work? Would math be one of those essential skills?
Yeah, I think we're not strictly in a more quantitative, we're decision making. So it's really being able to look at it and understand how can we help the business make the correct decisions. And when you look at it from a finance perspective, a lot of folks it's got to balance. Everything has to balance. The accountants will tell you if it's off a penny, it's off $1 million. But if I could tell you we could flip a penny 1,000 times and 550, it comes up heads, that's something you'd be willing to bet on if you were in Las Vegas, because in the long run, you're going to make out. I don't know why it's doing that, but it's a provable fact. So it's things like that that we're really looking for, and bringing that back to the business and saying, bet on heads this time, because statistically, and that's what things are going to do. So I think, understanding the statistics enough to be able to drive the decision making and how it works are really the key from a classroom learning perspective.
I totally agree. And I feel you also mentioned that, this is something you communicate to the business decision side. So once you understand it very well, once you can utilize it very well, you can communicate better. So this is also something I have realized, through my work experience. So once you also if you understand what the original business question better, their desire and what the kind of right questions to ask. So I think our time is almost up. I wonder if there are any questions from the panel. Lady? One minute.
No.
Okay.
If no other questions, I'd make a quick comment that almost any job you're going to be looking at is going to have some extent of data analytics in it. Data analytics
Absolutely.
is about decision making. So whether you're trying to sell cars for a living or, whatever, it's how do I do this better? Let me look at what's happened. Let me try to make decisions about how to make decisions that are going to make this better for the future. It's all data-based.
Wonderful last word. And Anthony, anything from you?
I would say that a final overall thought would be, if you are interested in this type of field, then start allocating some time to start working on some projects and helping you find out maybe better of what you want to do and get some experience. Because for me, that was the most helpful thing, is being able to talk about what I want to do from experience.
Thank you very much, Anthony. So wonderful last words. I have nothing to add. Thank you. Thank you both.
Great. Thank you everyone for sharing your insights with our audience. Keep watching. Our next panel on wealth management will begin shortly. Coming up, we have the Wealth Management panel moderated by Pete Joya.
Good day. I'm Pete Joya. I am an economic consultant to the Connecticut Society of CPAs. I've been an economist for 41 years, most of that time with the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. I'm very pleased to moderate this panel today. We have with us Jim Newman of Gottfried and Somberg Wealth Management, and Ken Catrone of the Connecticut Insurance Department. They're going to go through their experiences with wealth management and also a lot on how to break into the field, which I think is probably right on the cusp of the attendees' concerns. To start with, wealth management is an investment advisory service that can be used with other financial services to address the needs of clients and organizations, usually with a tailored approach. It also frequently uses a holistic approach to meet the complex needs of these clients and organizations, usually from a multifaceted approach. I'm going to start off with Jim Newman and then go to Ken Catrone. Jim, if you could share your experience and your advice to our audience, that'd be great.
Sure, happy to do it. Thanks, Pete. First off, I'm, as Pete said, I'm a wealth manager with Gottfried and Somberg Wealth Management. I've been in the business for about 24 years now, although I started as a equity research analyst with a hedge fund. So I have a stock research background, but Pete's exactly right that it is holistic wealth management. So it's not necessarily just investments. There's also that financial planning piece. I always tell people what we do is, we help successful people manage and invest their money and make financial decisions. There's a number of different things we do. I wear a few different hats because I have a background in investments, and I'm a CFA, which is a chartered financial analyst. So I do research, stock research, bond research. We do trading for client accounts, monitor them, rebalance investments, but we also do financial planning. So really, what is financial planning? It's everything that touches on someone's life financially, really. So it could be tax planning, estate planning, life insurance. So one thing I would say about being a wealth manager is it's good to have sort of a background in an expertise. Maybe it's investment background or accounting background or maybe even a legal background, but that's not essential. I think when I talk to people about what's essential, it might be a little different than what you think. Most people might think, well, to break into wealth management, I need to get a business degree. Not necessarily. That can help to have that as a background, but I would say the most important thing is good communication skills and good listening skills, which sounds super soft in an area where we're talking about, there's a value on hard skills like STEM, but soft skills like that in my business are the most important things. So I was a history major. I majored in history and am a really good verbal and written communicator, and that's made all the difference for me. But I have to work all the time on being a good listener. Again, if you have that background in investments or accounting, that's great. But I don't think it's essential. And as a wealth manager, you need to know a lot. You don't necessarily have to know a mile deep, but you have to know broadly a number of different things. I think it's inch deep, mile wide. I think that was what I was trying to get at. Yeah, as far as getting started, it's usually people will join what's called a wirehouse, like a large brokerage firm, like a Merrill Lynch, or and get started in the business that way. But there are a number of different routes to getting into wealth management because it's so broad and so diverse. Does that help, Pete?
Yeah, perhaps you could talk a little bit about, how do you go about getting some of these certifications? And do you think you had a leg up coming in through the hedge fund industry, or are there other industries that might even be a better track in talking with your fellow wealth managers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the first part with designations, so I have what's called a CFP and a CFA. So Chartered Financial Analyst, which is more investment part, and then Certified Financial Planner, which is the financial planning part. So you need a bachelor's degree for both to attain both of those. But beyond that, they're just tests. They're the CFA exam is 3 different levels, they call it, where you take basically, I think it is a 6-hour test for each level. And then CFP is a little different. It's you take a number of different courses and then you sit for one exam. And you also do what's called a capstone project. I think those are really, really helpful in the wealth management business because particularly with the CFP, it's pretty well known at this point. They've done a really good job, the board, of sort of promoting the CFP designation. So I would recommend that people who are interested in going into wealth management have a CFP. I think a CFA, Pete, is a little bit of overkill. I don't think you necessarily need a CFA. It's really helpful to have that investment background and expertise, but I would say a CFP is a really useful designation. In fact, I'm seeing a number of clients approach us and ask for that designation. So it's kind of become the gold standard in the industry. As far as additional ways to break in, yeah, I don't think you need to go to a hedge fund first. In fact, it's rare that you go to a hedge fund and then you get out of the hedge fund. Typically, you go into the hedge fund industry and you stay in there because it's an incredibly lucrative field. But what I loved was the ability to communicate with people and see financial decisions sort of manifested in their life, as opposed to be in this little silo where I'd research individual stocks. It was just a preference. But as far as breaking into the industry, sky's the limit. I would say an accounting background would be helpful, or just a business degree. But people break into this business in many different ways. It's hard to really sort of nail down a feeder industry, if you will.
Yeah, for all the people who've gotten into it, what's the most unusual way someone's broken in?
Oh, that I've heard of? Most unusual way of breaking in? That's a great question. I would say real estate. I've heard that. It's not super unusual. Actually, it could be even helpful to have a background. We get lots of questions on mortgages and buying homes and stuff like that. But that would probably be offhand the one I can think of. I think we once had a musician. Maybe that one might do it.
Yep. Okay, at this time, I'd like to switch and have Ken Catrone come on and give his comments. He's coming at this from a different angle with the insurance department, but in particular, also, how do you get into the industry? What are the challenges, and also what do you do and what's your background?
Sure. So my name's Ken Catrone. I've been with the Connecticut Insurance Department for close to 10 years now. I started right out of college as an accounting careers trainee. I went to Central Connecticut State University, have a bachelor's in accounting. So I partook in a 2-year training program with the Connecticut Insurance Department, with the end result being a financial analyst. Through the years, I worked my way up. Now I'm a certified financial examiner. I oversee a team of analysts we regulate all kinds of insurance companies. In relation to wealth management, some of the insurers that we regulate, for example, Voya Retirement Insurance and Annuity Company, they, on the wealth management side, they do annuity contracts for individuals and employer-sponsored retirement plans, as well as deferred comp plans. They also do retirement services, investment management services. They're a company that they want to become, their kind of slogan is they want to be America's retirement company. So we oversee companies like that. We look into the types of investments they are holding. We want to make sure they are solvent. So if an issue comes up, they're able to pay out on any contracts that they have. Yeah, the way I got into my field, I kind of fell into it. My accounting society posted after I graduated that the state of Connecticut was hiring accounting careers trainee positions for all different agencies. I happened to interview at the insurance department, had no background in insurance at the time, but it was an entry-level position. I learned over the years an incredible amount. So, you might find yourself having a degree in accounting or finance and not really realize at first how many different types of jobs are out there that are separate from the traditional CPA, public accountant type of job. Yeah, so the way I got into it, like I said, the accounting society, that's a good resource to go to if you're most universities, I believe, do have one. Great resource. They'll provide you with all different kind of ideas of jobs to apply to after college. For designations, I've got and they're insurance specific designations. Accredited financial examiner was the first one that I obtained. That was through the Society of Financial Examiners. And then shortly after that, I obtained my certified financial examiner designation through the Society of Financial Examiners as well.
Well, I've heard from you folks, both of you, a couple of things that I think are important. One is the need for communication amongst anyone who's applying. Second, in order to understand all these broad and various products, you need some research skills and a willingness to really read and delve into what's there. I mean, just in annuities alone, I mean, in the last several years, I've learned a lot about that because I've got one. It was important to do that to limit risk in uncertain times. And so, perhaps both of you, maybe start with Ken and then go to Jim, could delve a little deeper in, the needs for communications and research.
Sure. The needs for communication are essential. On my end, we communicate with representatives from the insurance companies that offer annuity contracts, things like that. And we have to, the way insurance regulation is structured, it's a state-based regulation. So each state regulates insurance companies that are doing business in their state. So a lot of the times we'll have a company here that based out of Connecticut that'll do business in, let's say, Ohio. So we'll communicate with the regulators in Ohio as well. There's a lot of inter-department communication. We got to really understand what these products these companies are offering, what their sort of mission is. And then the research function, like Peter said, it's annuities are, that's just one topic that you can spend hours and hours learning about. So a lot of research is required, a lot of looking up state statutes. We have a lot of insurance regulation related statutes and laws that insurance companies have to abide by. concerning their investments. There's investment limitation laws. We try to make sure that an insurance company is not overly concentrated in any sort of risky investment, things like that. And we really need to understand the types of contracts and products that these insurers are offering their clients. You know, a lot of people, when they think of insurance, they might not necessarily think of retirement services and investment management services, but some of these companies do provide those sort of services as well. So it's a lot different than your traditional, you know, auto policy, which people think of when they have insurance. The way I learned a lot about it, it was on the job experience, just being given assignments, using all the tools that the department had provided me with for researching. We have access to special databases, things like that. And then also studying for my designations. In order to get the accredited financial examiner designation, I had to take a series of 4 exams where I basically had to take a deep dive into all different insurance products, all different sorts of financial statements, different schedules associated with those financial statements. And that's where I really learned the most, I would say, about particularly the life insurance products, and how those can be used as like a wealth management tool. You know, you've got life insurance products and annuity contracts that might have a cashback option. Annuities, you know, those are pretty safe investments because you have guaranteed annuities. You're guaranteed a set amount that you're going to get for a certain amount of time. But yeah, the research is huge, especially when new types of investments and products are being developed. We need to research them and have a broad understanding of what they are.
Want me to jump in, Pete?
Yeah.
So on communication and research, communication is really, I mean, it's the essence of what I do in wealth management. I've got to be part educator, part psychologist, really. So, you know, I've got to listen to what people are saying. I've got to sort of mirror that back to them. I got to make sure the communication is clear and that, but I've also got to communicate empathy in a way that they want to trust me and they understand that I care. So there's a big part of that communication that's you know, really, really good listening and clarification. I would say, and then written correspondence is essential, and it's not going away anytime soon. Which you know, in a tweet world, writing well is really important. So communication everything is driven for me off communication. For research, I would just say that asking really good questions is the way to research. There's no better way to know a topic than to have to explain it simply to someone else, which is what we have to do when interacting with a client. So understanding how to explain it is a great way to delve into something and learn it really, really well. And I only do that by asking a ton of questions. And if I can't answer it, I know I'm not going to be able to present it well in front of the client. Yeah.
Jim, you know, one of the challenges you've got is, you know, getting clients and then getting comfortable with clients. What sort of skills or actions do you need to do those things?
Sure. I think you have to be someone who is fundamentally curious about other people, because if that's not authentic, people know. You've got to legitimately be interested in other people, their perspectives, and not come into a wealth management meeting or client interaction thinking you have all the answers and they got to figure out why you're the expert. There's a lot of gray area in wealth management. There's not necessarily a one way to do something. So understanding someone's values and priorities and goals is super hard, because you've got to sort of tease that out from them, and they're not always aware of it. So you're helping to clarify it with them. That's an essential part of the communication, and that sort of that provides. They know you're an empathetic and caring person when you're drawing that out of them, because you're asking not about, hey, I know this annuity is going to fit you because you're X number of years old and you must need this amount. No, it's like, what do you want? And who are you? And where is this all headed? And I will construct around that. And I'll be collaborative with you in working in whether that's a fit for you. That's the fun of it, I would say. You have to have the expertise, but then there's sort of customizing it for the individual because they're all different. And that's the challenge. And if you go down that road, people know you care, you're empathetic, and they will trust you. They assume competence. They just want to see you care.
Okay, first Jim and then Ken. What one piece of advice would you give to these young people who want to break into this wealth management area?
That's a great question. What would be a good mentor would be the best advice I could give. Be less concerned about where in the industry you break in and be more interested in with who you work under initially, and make sure that that's a fit with your values. Our industry can be pretty salesy. So if that's not your thing, if you want to be more on the holistic financial planning, wealth management side, you need to find a firm that is focused on being a fiduciary, which we didn't even get into. Somebody who's takes the client's best interests at mind, isn't just a salesman. There's nothing wrong with selling, but if you want to break into pure wealth management, you want to go into something that's holistic. And I would argue a fiduciary, someone who has to put the client's best interests in mind. And then I would find a firm that you thought did really well with clients in that way, and work under somebody who you think you trusted, had good values, and could teach you. A good mentor as you're starting out is everything in this industry.
Okay, and Ken, your comments?
I would echo what Jim said. If you can get in with a firm or an organization that really strives to make sure that their new employees are being well mentored and have the opportunity to grow their careers, I think that's huge. I was kind of taken under the wing of Kathy Belfi, the Director of Financial Regulation here. She has been an excellent mentor to me during my career at the insurance department, and has really always set me up to succeed. So yeah, if you can find a firm or an organization that has, strong leadership, that is willing to provide you with all the resources to make you succeed and encourages you to succeed, I think that's great. Great place to start.
Okay. We've seen that, this is a pretty broad area. There's different approaches to it. There's different skill sets required depending upon where you go with it. But for these young people who are listening, who should not go into this field? What should be, a red flag saying, this probably isn't for you. You should probably stay away.
You want me to go first on that?
Yeah.
Or Ken?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I have never thought of that. That's a great question. I would say if you're just in wealth management, I think if you're just focused on the science of it, let's say, as opposed to the people side of it, for lack of a better word, if you want to just go in and tell people what to do, I think you're in the wrong field. Maybe engineering or something. If you think there's a single solution to everything, and you look at finance and investments and things that fall under that umbrella as sort of math and just math, I think you're going to be really disappointed in this field, because this field is as much judgment and experience and soft skills as it is hard skills and knowledge and research. So also, if you don't care about people, you're not going to be successful, because they're going to see it, they're going to know it, they're going to smell it. And so that's what I would say.
Yeah, and trust is so important. So that's a big problem. If you can't get that trust, how are you going to advise people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't need to be an extrovert. I think sometimes you think, oh, if I'm a wealth manager, I gotta be a great public speaker, amazing and that it's not a bad thing, but there are plenty of introverts that do a great job in wealth management. I think it's just curiosity, caring, and being a genuine person. It's so soft. But what I'm learning, Pete and Ken, is that success in any field it's more soft skills than it is anything else.
Yeah, especially as you go up the chain. Ken, what about you? What would you advise for someone if they had certain personality or background that they should stay away?
If you're looking for a job where you're going to be, sitting behind a desk and just crunching numbers, this probably isn't. Like Jim said, you got to have those soft skills. You got to think outside the box a lot, and have a solid understanding of the different risks associated with the products these insurers offer, the risks associated with the investments that they have, and so it's a lot more than just crunching numbers. I came from an accounting with an accounting degree, and I at first thought I was going to go the traditional CPA route. I wasn't sure what I was going to do exactly. If I was going to do just bookkeeping, taxes, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's a lot of communication with heads of insurance companies, interdepartment communication. It's a lot more than what you would think of a traditional accounting job. So I'd say, yeah, somebody that wants to just crunch numbers, probably not the exact field. There's definitely that aspect to it, but like Jim said, you don't have to be an extrovert, but I don't think, maybe an introvert might be somewhere in the middle is where you want to be, I would say.
Okay, well, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Perhaps starting with Jim. Anything we've missed that we should communicate to these people?
Less miss and more reiterate. What Ken said, I thought was spot on with following up on my thought with mentoring. Finding that I think out of the gate, finding that good first couple experiences is super important. More than money, more than what you think is even a super linear career track. Just finding a place that has a good culture, has good values, and who you're working for, and what you learn from them in those first formative jobs is going to mean everything. Anything that doesn't work out, it's usually because it was a bad boss. So to the degree you can find someone who could be a good mentor for you, who be a good boss, I would almost look at that as more important than what firm, what business, what industry, because that all sort of will get figured out for you. It's it's having some really good people that you learn all these soft skills under, and you learn about the industry under. I would reiterate how important that is. If you can also get a designation while you're doing it, it's sort of, you're learning the soft parts and the business, and then you're learning the expert part with the designation too. And I think that complement is really, really impactful and sets you up for success.
And I'd say designations, that's huge. If you can get your designations early on in your career, you'll learn a lot from preparing for those designations, as well as it just opens up a lot of opportunities for you. And I found from my experience with coworkers, the longer you put it off, the harder it's going to be to get those designations. So if you jump right in as soon as you can, I think that's the way to go.
That's a great advice, by the way. Don't do it when you have kids.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got maybe 30 seconds. If What's a key question someone needs to ask when they're interviewing for a position in this field?
I would say how, gosh, that's a great question. I would say, when am I going to be, how am I going to assume the relationship? What's my role in the client relationship, and how soon will I be able to be sort of the lead and the lead advisor?
Yeah. Ken?
I would ask, what is the culture like at the organization? Where are the rooms to grow? And maybe what opportunities does this organization offer down the road? I think that would be a great question to ask. It can kind of help you plan if this is the right fit for you.
Yeah, I certainly, in my career, I've seen the importance of the culture of an organization and the importance of a good mentor. And if both of those aren't good, you're going to have a tough time enjoying your work at that place. So, those are critical things to find out when you're a young person in the interviewing. It's not necessarily easy to find out, but it's worth the effort to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we're about done since I get the 1 minute thing a little over a minute ago. I'd like to thank Ken and Jim for their time and for sharing their expertise with everybody. I want to wish all the people who are tuning in the best of luck in your career. And I hope you've learned from these two gentlemen certain things of, how, whether you should or should not approach a career in wealth management. And the best of luck to you in the career.
Thanks everyone for sharing your experience with us, and I apologize for my dog barking in the background. Stand by, our panel on professional designations is next. Up next is a panel on professional designations moderated by Steve Mulready.
Okay, welcome everyone. We'll be talking about professional designations, what they mean, who needs them, why they're important, and how they're retained. And I'm just going to go around the room and ask our panelists to just identify themselves, where they work, and whether or not they have a designation. So let's start with you, Jim.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. My name is James Hogan. I am an assistant professor of accounting at the University of St. Joseph in West Hartford, Connecticut. What a beautiful day to be on campus. Beautiful fall day here. I've retired from a 35-year career in insurance finance. I had attained levels of chief auditor as well as chief financial officer, and I would have never been able to achieve that level had I not been a CPA, certified public accountant. I don't tell you the year I passed it, because when I tell it to my students, they remind me they weren't born yet. In addition, I'm a member of the American Institute of CPAs and the Connecticut Society of CPAs. And one of the things I'd like to talk about is the distinction between not only attaining the designation, but also having current membership in the most active areas of our profession as well. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
And we'll be back to you in a few minutes on that, so you could go through that. Well, Sushna, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sushna. Everybody says Sush for short. And currently, I'm an insurance financial examiner at the Connecticut Department of Insurance within the captive division. I'm currently in the beginning journey of the path of certification, specifically in accredited financial examiner, short for AFE. So I'm at the beginning of the spectrum, pretty excited, open eyes, ready to, really take it on. Thank you.
And Michaela.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Michaela Scott. I work with Forslow Insurance, and I lead our 401k 403b practice. My background for the last decade is in finance, and I'm very connected in a leadership role with the American College, which you may know does host a lot of really wonderful programs for continuing education and designations. The designations I hold include Master of Science in Financial Services with a focus on retirement outcomes, certified financial planner, accredited investment fiduciary, retirement income, certified professional, CHFC, CHSA, CLU. So I've focused a lot on my continuing education, and I'm very excited about this important panel.
Great, thanks very much. And Ken.
Hey, welcome. Thank you, Steve. My name is Ken Garashko. I'm currently a visiting professor based here at the University of Hartford. I teach economics and finance, but I'm also associated with UConn graduate program, both Waterbury and Hartford, and occasionally down in Quinnipiac. Similar to Jim, I have 35 years of prior experiences working in group underwriting, especially director of underwriting, risk management, and insurance, as well as our group national accounts and regional accounts business segment going forward. A lot of P&L responsibilities and so forth. I do have various certifications, one life health licensing requirement through the state of Connecticut previously, as well as a GBDS group benefits disability specialist certification going forward. And it's been a real great honor to be here and to share some thoughts going forward with this panel.
Great, thank you, Ken. Jim, let's go back to you and talk about the CPA, why it's necessary and why you pursued it.
Absolutely. I'd like to, and I'll broaden it a little bit as well and talk about some of the other designations that are available in the area of accounting and finance as well. The accounting profession is kind of a really interesting one in that you get your degree from college, but then we test you to see whether you have attained the right proficiency in your field, sitting for that CPA exam after you've already graduated. And I think it's great that there's this standard test throughout our country, all 50 states. It's the same exam where we get to see, who can pass this and who cannot as we go through the process here. I think it's great to couple that with that educational background. So it's post-graduation test. And can you pass that? But I'll tell you that it only tells us at a point in time, do you maintain that level of proficiency? And then the issue I think for us is, how do we know you're maintaining those standards going forward? And this is where I think some of these organizations and societies come into play as well. I think that for me, the natural progression after getting an accounting degree was trying to attain the CPA. My parents had instilled in us a very hard work ethic, as well as pursuing educational goals as well. And it was natural for me, with my background and my family ethics here, to pursue the CPA exam. And I'm so glad I did. After I graduated from the University of Hartford with my undergraduate degree and started to work at KPMG, one of the big four accounting firms, and it passed the exam when I was working there as well. And it just opened so many doors for me professionally. I worked just under 5 years at the firm, and then I moved into the insurance industry, as I had mentioned, working as a chief audit executive, as well as a chief financial officer of some organizations. I would have never gotten to that level as quickly as I did had I not attained the CPA. So, point in time, you're proficient on that exam. How do we know that CPAs are maintaining the standard going forward? And this is where the memberships, in my mind, come into play. In our field, we've got the two preeminent organizations, the first of which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, a national organization. They maintain the highest standards of ethics, of proficiency in the field, and allowing us current access to the most cutting edge technical information available within our field. When I see a CPA as well as a member in those two organizations, I know I'm getting one of the top professionals in the area of accounting. Now, I will tell you that there's others available as well that may be lesser known. I'm going to jump into finance for a minute, because I think in the area—
Jim, could I stop you just for a moment? I want to come back. I want to give the rest of the panelists an opportunity. But when I come back, you can talk about that. But I also want you to make a distinction between what a CPA can do and those without it cannot.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Michaela, you had identified a number of certifications that you have. Or designations, are they required in what you do? Or do they just distinguish you from the pack?
So they distinguish me from the pack. In terms of, and I'm very curious about James' answer to the question you just posed, because I don't know that on the accounting side, even though I'm in the finance world. Yep. What I would say is it's the licensing, it's the securities licensing. So having a series 6, 7, 65, 66, those licenses dictate what I can do and what kind of services and products I can offer to clients and how I can charge. Can I be fee-based? Can I be fee only? Do I only need to earn commission? It's those licenses which are required. And actually, you can go right to FINRA. You can see everyone's license, when they got it. But my designation as a certified financial planner, for example, or having my master's where I focus on retirement planning from the American College of Financial Services, that just, I think, elevates my commitment to my industry. It gave me a lot of confidence as a professional. So it did more for my confidence than truly anything else. I mean, from knowing my stuff, right? And then having access to these wonderful organizations where they provide really up-to-date current information where you can be immersed in your profession is important. But in terms of me being able to sell or service somebody or consult with them or become their advisor in a certain way, that's dictated by my licenses, not necessarily my designations. With one important point, there are certain designations, like being an accredited investment fiduciary, that I have access to certain checklists or certain guidance where I can do certain things as a fiduciary with the client that is kind of proprietary to that designation as a value add to the people who hold it. But I think that's a really great question and point of distinction.
Good. That's helpful. And were you encouraged by your employer to pursue the designations?
So I'll be very candid with you, right? So when I graduated from college, first of all, I studied politics. I was not a finance or business major. And I got into the financial world where I started with really insurance policies, life insurance, disability insurance policies. And I grew in my profession to be more comprehensive, more consultative. And when I took that leap, I made the conscious decision that I wanted to go do it. There were certain members of our firm who had different opinions based on designations. You know, no one's ever called me and given me business because I'm a, CHFC. And that's true. Actually, no, this just happened. So I can say one person did look me up and found me because of my designation. But yes, I understand it's not a cure-all for being able to have all the prospects you want in the world by having a designation. I understand that. But for me, it allowed me to direct and focus my profession in a way that I otherwise would not have been able to. And I think the more comprehensive and forward-thinking advisors who were really consultative with their clients supported my continuing education and getting those designations. So
great. Ken, you also have a few designations. Talk about them and whether they were elective or not.
In the employee benefits field, relative to various positions, if you're out there, and I want to follow up on Michaela's point, if you're making recommendations with a client, a producer, any type of entity where you're making suggestions, recommendations, or making statements relative to a industry connection, in my field, some type of professional designation, such as a life health license, was mission critical going forward, because not only does it add a little or provides the appropriate professionalism, as Michaela and Jim have shared, but it also is there to document your consultative expertise, but also from an employer perspective. And Steve, this is your question here is, did my employer recommend it? Absolutely. It's a prerequisite, because there is an element of liability protection when you're out there in front of clients making very specific recommendations, observations. You need those, if you will, licenses and those credentials from a protection of a liability shield, if you will, but also you want to demonstrate your best foot forward with your clients, because you're representing the industry, you're representing your company, you're also representing yourself as a professional. And that level of professionalism by way of certifications, I always felt was, again, mission critical. Both life health licensing on the individual side, life health on the group side, but also property casualty also licensing, because when you're out there from an employee benefits, you're looking at multiple lines of coverage, not just group. You're also looking at workers' comp. So the property casualty component does come into play. In addition, there are other licensing, such as the group benefit disability specialist license that helps you also talk about absence management, which a lot of employers are very focused in on going forward to effectively reduce their costs, their, if you will, absence costs. So all of that is critical. It helps from an engagement, confidence standpoint, as Michaela and Jim have shared, but it also enables you to provide the appropriate support and consultation to your customers moving forward.
Sure. So the Insurance Institute is clearly an area that produces out a lot of certifications or designations. The CPCU for casualty underwriters, the CLU, as you mentioned, for life, ADA, which is the new business analytics, data analytics, as well as the ARM. Talk a little bit about the time commitment to get these designations.
Well, it depends on the designations, but I'll give you a great example. The SEBS, Certified Employee Benefits Specialist, which is a series of essentially 6 exams. It takes approximately 2.5 years, where you take maybe 1 or 2, if you will, modulars, and it requires approximately 100 hours of intense study to achieve and get a successful grade regarding your Certified Employee Benefits Specialist designation. But again, that SEBS designation opens tremendous doors for you, as well as your clients going forward. So again, it is time consuming, but it is critically important from a professional expectation, but a professional standard standpoint, as Jim shared, because it enables you to, in my opinion, provide insights and perspectives that very possibly would not exist in absence of your formal certification?
In the exams you've taken, are they all online now?
The answer is yes. Yes, it's all online. But one follow-up to Steve is, even though you may get these certifications, life, health, property casualty, GBDS, or even SEBS, there's always a continuing education aspect to it. It doesn't stop once you are awarded or you've earned the designation. Continuing education is mission critical as well regarding any certification, and is part and parcel of your overall learning process so you can better service your clients.
Great. So Soshna, you're new in your career, and you've decided to get your designation as an examiner. Tell us a little bit about that and whether that's required by your employer.
Yeah, absolutely. It is required by my employer, and I feel like the need to have that as a requirement is beneficial for myself as well as a department, because what better way, like everybody is emphasizing within this group, that you're getting that stamp of approval. You're pretty much showing your peers and your employer as well as future clients that you want to continue this lifelong learning. You want to be able to have that confidence within knowledgeable of that specific career path, as well as the information you were studying, and that it really helps everybody in a whole. So it was part of my employment, and I think any person, especially fresh as I am, would look at it with nervous eyes and say, oh no, what do I do? Do I keep my previous employment, or do I jump in head first and excited? And I think for me, I've always considered myself a lifelong learner, has completed a master's degree as well as a bachelor's degree. And I felt like this was the perfect opportunity to, work at the state of Connecticut, and let alone try something brand new. Thank you.
Great. And how long did it take to go through that process for you?
I'm still actually in the beginning of the process. So currently, I have a time period of studying, and within that time period, I am required after a couple of years, I will keep that straightforward,
yeah.
to be able to have that accreditation after my name. But I feel like with the everyday working, having a great director as well as a co-worker, and just learning on the job and taking these few classes and independently studying is allowing me to really see, the full benefits of it. So I'm pretty much excited to be able to be at the end of the light of the tunnel, running to the finish line, like, yeah, I did it. So wish me luck.
Good for you. Good for you. We do wish you luck. I want to ask you one question on that, though. That particular exam, is that, or that designation, is that all you need, or are there other things that you see in the future that you would take in terms of designations?
Yeah, good question. Currently within my role, it's just the AFE, but I know that the previous individual in the last panel was us talking about that once you complete the AFE, you can go to the next one, which is the CFE. So I feel like if I can really, get that one done, and I continue to see that momentum, and I see peers like within this panel who are always, taking the next step and going to the next, step above, why not be able to, look at that as well? So thank you.
As you said, lifelong learner. So it's great. Back to you, Jim. I interrupted you just to get some, but please continue.
I'd be happy to thank. Yeah, I feel like my students feel the same way. I just keep going and going here sometimes. Yeah, so the CPA, again, I think is very important in our field, and I appreciate what each of us have said here, that how do we differentiate ourselves among competition for jobs, as well as maybe the standard we've set for ourselves of being really proficient in our field. And I think attaining these levels are very, very important. We have CPA. Steve, you had mentioned right before that what can a CPA do? And there's a little bit of a misnomer out there in our society in general, because I'll hear people say, oh, these financial statements have been certified by the CPA. That's what they do. And interestingly, we don't certify financial statements. We actually certify people. We certify the accountant. The accountant is a certified public accountant. We express an opinion on financial statements, and that's kind of how we go about the process here. Now, what a CPA can do is sign off on a tax return as well as a public audit as a CPA, and the public can draw comfort, as well as the IRS, that these have been reviewed by a professional in the area, and they're expressing a professional opinion that meets the standards within our profession. And, with public entities reviewing 10K reports and financial statements, we provide a very important process for the financial markets, giving comfort that a second set of eyes have looked at these numbers of management and are attesting to the fair representation of that information out there. So that's the CPA side of what goes on. I think in the area of finance, an equal standard for them is what is called the Chartered Financial Analyst. And maybe you've heard of this CFA as well. They have a CFA Institute as well that you can join membership in also. So I think you're going to find, it, as we've been hearing today with our various backgrounds and fields, there are a whole host of opportunities to take exams post-graduation, prove your proficiency in an area, join some professional organizations. And again, for three big things that it's going to help you do: make sure you're proficient in your field of study and the work that you're doing in industry. Number two, maintain adherence to the highest ethical standards within your area of practice. And then number three, make sure you always have access to the most cutting edge and current technical information so you're able to serve your clients as best you can.
Great. I got one final question for you before I open it to the full panel. You're a professor now at St. Joe's, so you no longer practice as a professional accountant, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
And do you keep your designation?
I do, and that's a great question as well. In Connecticut, we have a two-track process here. I do not practice as a CPA. I don't sign returns. I don't sign as audits. And so we're allowed to register our certificate, which is what I do. So I cannot right now sign as a CPA on those two areas. I don't do it anyway. Mm-hmm. I can hold myself out as a CPA. I can put on letterhead, academic purposes, etc. But I just can't sign off on those. And so I register my certificate with the state of Connecticut and have been doing that, I would say for the past 10 years or so. At any point in time, I can go back and reactivate my license and go into practice if I wish. So I felt this met what my needs were at this point. And there are hundreds of other professionals doing the same thing that I've done as well.
Okay, great. I'm going to open it to the rest of you. I'm conscious of the time. We've got about 6 minutes. I want to talk more about values other than the immediate value of getting the designation and helping you perform your job. You get the opportunity to go to conferences. What's the value of that for you in terms of networking, continuing education, and then also advancement, your designation? Where do you see that taking you? And I'll just open it up to the entire group.
Well, let me just start it off. One, you're able to assess current trends. Assessing those trends, also identifying which individuals can best specialize in those trends that can help you with your clients moving forward. So assessing trends, number one, what are the recent trends, what is evolving? But from there, learning from a networking standpoint, who specializes in those certain trends and how do you assess those opportunities so you can better support clients and customers relative to the contacts you've made.
Great. Michaela?
I agree with that. As I've found in my career, I become more and more specialized and more focused in what I want to do. So you find that your competition really aren't competition anymore. They're your peers, and they're the people that you might be referring business back and forth to or collaborating with cases on. So as I built my client base, I found that these conferences and the access to, know these people have gone through a same program. They're continuing their education in that same way. They're staying current in a way that's meaningful to me and would be meaningful to my clients. And what direction did they focus? And how does that complement me? I think that's really been very valuable. And in terms of my profession, when you build your own practice, right? I've never had a salary my entire career. Directly from college, I grew based on fee or assets under management or insurance policies. And it can be lonely sometimes. And these these groups become your real colleagues. And I really find, especially if you've enjoyed, I was a college athlete too. I really like the camaraderie aspect. And you think sometimes it's just academic, you get your designation, but it can be so much more than that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The conferences, I always found that this was not, people hiding stuff as much as wanting to share, what's working for them. And that's terrific. So, again, young in your career, I'm not sure you've had an opportunity to go to any of the conferences yet, but I want to give you a moment to comment either way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I feel like, just like I said, being a part of this panel, I know for me, it's going to have the opportunity to expand my network. I know that the audience right now is, either LinkedIn, beginner or LinkedIn pro, and being able to finally be a part of this, designation/club and be able to go to the conference, I will be able to elevate my network and expand on it. And I love how, we'll be able to, innovate, collaborate, expand on ideas. And then lastly, for me, it would be able to really see that my career has a longevity within, my department, and let alone in the insurance area. So I look at it as building blocks, and any person who is interested in lifelong learning and continue to, grow up against those blocks, why not do this? So thank you.
Yeah, very good. And Jim, I'll give you the final word.
I think that, I think about, job security versus career security. And I think there is no more job security. You can't judge you're going to join a company and they will guarantee you a job for the rest of your life. We have to take ownership for ourselves. And I think that's what career side of that argument is, that how do we maintain our skills, the tool belt, and stay current? And I think going to a lot of these conferences, symposia, et cetera, are going to help us do that, so that we can maintain our own career security, so that we've got marketable skills that are current, we're gaining them. I love Sasha talking about starting in her career, and I love this lifelong learning that she's talking about as well. With that will come career security, and you'll be secure that you'll be able to add value to a host of industries and type of companies out there throughout your lifetime.
So have any of you been instructors for any of the designations? Jim or Ken or Michaela? Because that's an opportunity.
Yeah, I have. I've taught the CPA review course. I've taught that for many years in the past, helping students get to that level.
Right, great. Okay, I think we're wrapping up right now. I want to thank all of you for joining today. And Lady Medusa, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for sharing such helpful information, and stay with us. The operations panel will be up next. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lady Mendoza. I am the Director of Legislative Affairs at the Connecticut Insurance Department, and will be serving as the moderator for today's discussion on careers in operations. As we've already heard from prior panels, there are so many different career opportunities in insurance and in finance. And during today's panel discussion, we'll be talking about careers in public relations, government affairs, and human capital strategy, all within the insurance industry. So before we get started, let's meet our panelists. Kim?
Sure. Hi, Lady. Thank you for having me. My name is Kim Kahn. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Public Relations and Corporate Communications at Connecticut. I serve both Connecticut and our subsidiary company, Wellspark Health.
Great. Thank you. Jackie?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Lady. Nice to be here with you all. I'm Jackie Merle-Bamman. I am the Chief People Officer at Nassau Financial Group, which is an insurance entity in the Hartford area.
Great, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Courtney.
Thanks, Lady. My name is Courtney Larkin. I work at Travelers in state government relations, and I have been at the company and in this role for 17 years.
Awesome. Thanks so much, ladies. So to give our audience a bit more background into your career path, I'm interested to know if your college major reflects where you are currently today. And let's start off with Kim.
No. The short answer is no. I actually did not know what I wanted to do. So I went to college. Then I worked for a little while and then went back to college and ended up with a Bachelor's of General Studies degree from the University of Connecticut because I determined that I wanted to combine business with human development and family relations studies because my logic was if you can communicate with your family, then you can communicate with anyone. And that's so the short answer to your question is no.
Got it. Jackie?
And I would have to say no also. So here I am in human resources, yet my education, both undergrad and graduate, was in international affairs. My goal was to work with US businesses that were interested in going into Europe, in particular Spain. I had studied in Spain in college. And that was a huge focus of mine. What's interesting about international affairs and human resources is, of course, you have a human connection. You have to understand different cultures and the way in which people think and feel. So in some ways, I didn't study human resources. There's a correlation, but in my mind, a very different career path.
Awesome. Courtney?
Well, I think the short answer for me is yes. I majored in government and with a minor in economics. So in a lot of ways, you could say that I did follow. I knew I was interested in politics and more specifically in government and the structure of US government. Did I ever picture myself at an insurance company? No, not at all. And in fact, when I got this job, I thought, well, I'll do it for a year or two. Kind of sounds boring, but we'll see where it goes. And I have to say, I've been very fulfilled for 17 years and plan to stick around. So
that's awesome. So I'd be interested, Kim and Jackie, since this was not your career path, how did you wind up in an insurance company?
Well, I was interviewing for jobs and I started my career at the Hartford. And I have to say, similar to Courtney, it has been amazing. Very thankful that I did enter the insurance industry. I think there are so many different opportunities within insurance. As you mentioned, the three of us today aren't in actuarial or finance or any of the things that most immediately come to mind about insurance. But there's so many opportunities and different things you can get involved in. So for me personally, it turned out to be a great place to be.
It is interesting to see how the paths take you, where, how you end up an industry that you may never have thought you'd be in. I too did not think I would be in insurance. I've been in human resources for 20 years, but I was up in the Massachusetts area and I was in a number of different fields. And I spent about 10 years in energy, which was also an area I hadn't necessarily thought I would be in. But the beauty of HR is it can transition to different industries. And when I relocated to Connecticut 4 years ago and learned about Nassau through someone that I knew that was working there and had connected with the leadership team, understood kind of a unique culture to a smaller insurance company with an asset management side of the business as well. And so I kind of fell into insurance with, of course, the experience in human resources. But those are many paths that your journey through your careers can take you a place you didn't expect to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's talk about your current role and what it entails. We'll start off with Courtney. So what's it like to be the Vice President of Government Relations for such a large insurer?
Well, I have to say it's fun. It's fun. It's exciting. One thing I knew, growing up through my high school and college careers was that I wanted something that challenged me and would be different. The idea of sort of having a desk job 5 days a week that in my mind, at least at that age, was, monotonous, didn't sound good to me. And I have to say, being in state government relations, every week is different and sometimes every day is different. I cover a region of the country for my company. And so like pre-pandemic, I would travel to each of the state capitals and work on legislation and regulatory action that affected my company. So I have met tons of people. I have learned all about different state governments, which are all different, and just been able to really learn and grow every year at this job. And I love it. It's great. And Connecticut's my base, but I love going up to Boston and going to the state capitol there, or going down to Annapolis, Maryland, and meeting my team down there. And it's fun. It's challenging. Lobbying for a large insurer is not an easy job. You're not always getting a lot of sympathy, but what we do is really important and protects people and their biggest assets in times of crisis. So I'm very happy to do it. I'm proud to do it. And again, it was nothing I ever would have thought would be my job at this stage of the game.
Kim, so what are some of your responsibilities as the Assistant Vice President of Public Relations and Corporate Communications?
Well, I have the best job in the company by far. Similar to Courtney, I have a lot of variation in what I do. Sometimes every day is different. I actually am responsible for bringing visibility to our brand and our executives. So I oversee media relations, I oversee philanthropy, executive communications, speaking opportunities. It allows me to know many people and really get exposed to lots of different ways that I can bring how we bring our mission to life to people. So at Connecticut, our mission is to create healthier futures for our customers and our communities. And one of the really fulfilling things that I get to do is show people how we do that.
That's awesome. And Jackie, what does being a Chief People Officer look like?
It's very interesting. We have a theme going on here today with three of us very enthusiastic about the roles that we're in and the companies that we work for. And I think that says a lot about the organizations and the industry. I too feel I've got the best job at Nassau as the Chief People Officer, which is a title that's just the head of human resources. And the beauty of human resources and why I fell in love with the career is this combination of understanding and having to learn about the business, but also really dealing with all of the people. And so I get this combination. Now, every manager has to deal with humans. So there's a human and people connection to everything, but I get to look at it from a much broader perspective. And in that regard, it's different every day. Another theme we've heard today. Growing companies are incredibly exciting to work for, and ensuring that there's support and development opportunities and education and guidance and as much fun as you could possibly have at work is something that I get to focus on. We've got the nitty gritty of, I say keep the wheels on the bus. We need to make sure everybody gets paid. We need to make sure everybody's benefits work well. We want to certainly have career paths for individuals. But handling change management and developmental growth, organizational growth is something that we focus on in human resources, and just working with employees, managers, training and development. Really that, again, the combination of business and people and how they fit together.
Awesome. So we'll stick with you, Jackie. What are some important skills that folks need to have in order to be successful in your role?
I think there's got to be some sense of willingness to understand and learn about a business. Human resources is essentially a functional area that supports the business, but the best way to be successful in human resources is to truly understand what your organization does. HR can sometimes get a little bit of a bad rap because we're the ones that create the rules and policies at a company, but it's a question of doing it to support the employees and continue to support and grow the organization. And so a balance of empathy and understanding where people are coming from and how they're behaving, what the needs are that they have, with knowing we're running a business and we need to continue to advance the organization and advance the individuals. So an open-mindedness is something that's always been incredibly important, a willingness to learn. At this stage of my career, I still learn every day, and I love the fact that there's something else that I don't know that I can focus on. And then truly from an initial moving into an HR role, you've got to be good at administrative skills, because the backbone of HR is managing, benefits and managing payroll and managing performance issues and performance management cycles. And so you need to be organized and orderly and enjoy that.
Awesome. What about you, Courtney? What are some skills folks need to be successful in government relations?
Well, I think you need to be good at communications. I liked when Kim talked about her major, because I often say, lobbying your family is the hardest job you'll ever have. So if you can do that, you can lobby a senator or a state representative. But yeah, being able to relate to people, being able to understand where they're coming from on an issue, finding the common ground on an issue is really important in my role. As you can imagine, there's a lot of legislation that comes up that regulates my company and the lines of business that we write. And so it's not about just saying no to the legislation. It's about finding out, well, how can we do this so it works best for us, how it works best for the consumer, so that we can all benefit and there's clarity around it. So, I think number one is communication, and then just, those personal skills, just understanding everyone's coming from somewhere. Everyone's maybe, someone might be having a bad day. It might not have anything to do with you, and just kind of understanding people and reading their body language. It's become, particularly challenging in the last 18 months doing all of these. I can tell you I've done probably 100 fundraisers on Zoom now, political fundraisers, and they're a lot harder than being in person. But we all adapt, and it's been a new challenge. So I think those are the primary things. I should probably mention, I am a lawyer by trade. I did go to law school, but you don't need to be a lawyer to be in government relations. About half of our team are lawyers and half are not. I think it's just an added skill, being able to read the law and interpret it with, sort of a higher set of skills, I guess. But it's not a necessary thing to be a lobbyist or be in government relations. So.
Yeah, thank you. No, certainly. I do similar work for the insurance department, and My background is actually in education. I was going to be an elementary school teacher, and then my journey has taken me to different places. But Kim, give us some insight on what skills are necessary to be successful in your role.
Sure. Similar to what Jackie and Courtney said, I think communication skills are really at the core of public relations. Flexibility, as I mentioned earlier, no 2 days are the same. People really need to be able to adapt to change and adjust to whatever is happening in your day. Some strong analytical skills are also necessary. So in addition to having a good handle on what your organization does, what your business is, you need to be able to evaluate a situation and determine, okay, what is important for me to get out to the public? What should people know about this situation? What will help them? What do they need to know? What do we need to share as a company? So there is a fair amount of analysis that needs to go into really doing a good job with this job. And then I would say the other part of that is evaluating after the fact. So whatever you chose to do, whatever your campaign was, whatever you were working on, how did it go? Really being able to take an honest look at how it went and identify what went well, what didn't go well, and what you can change in the future. And it's a real team environment. So that ability to do work independently and come together as a team is really important in PR.
Awesome, thank you. Well, as I previously mentioned, I had a different path early on. And it was through an internship that I was actually introduced to government relations. While I was in my master's program, I interned at the Office of Policy and Management. And there I was able to work on legislative affairs with the team. And that actually led to a job with Governor Malloy's office, which has, and then now I'm here at the insurance department, but that's how I started. So I'm interested to hear if any of you have any internship stories you'd like to share, or if that was part of your trajectory. And I'll open it up to anyone.
Well, I'll jump in first just because I share a similar story, lady. I started with an internship. I was in college, and like I said previously, I always knew I was interested in government. So I had an internship with the House of Representatives in Connecticut in the Democratic Caucus. And from my work there, I was able to get an internship over the summer at the governor's office, in their legal office. And that was a long time ago, probably when you were in kindergarten. It was for Governor Rowland. And that internship, well, first of all, it was like the first time I got paid. It was my first paid internship. So that was remarkable. I just thought, I can't believe someone's paying me to do something I'm so interested in. And then secondly, it launched me, the lawyers in that office convinced me to go to law school and really helped me through law school. And that's when I discovered that, lobbying would be a really fun and interesting way to engage with government and state government in particular. So I owe a lot to my internships, and love when I don't get the opportunity often, but when I get to have an intern here at Travelers, I always love bringing them around and showing them the ropes of government relations.
It's really nice to hear that path. I did not have an internship in human resources. I fell into it, which is not atypical, but we have a very strong intern program here at NASA, and I firmly believe in the exposure that it can provide. My path was more of, I was out of work for a little while when I became a mom, and then I knew I needed to get back in the workforce, and I became an office manager at a small company in Andover, Mass, where I lived, and that launched my HR career. I had studied a different field that I had worked in for a while, and But I do truly believe that the way the intern programs exist today, they're so much more formalized. They're truly a pipeline for organizations to bring in new talent. And most importantly, they expose students and those to a professional environment that otherwise you may not get exposure to. So it's nice to hear, Courtney, that that you had that, level of exposure, and it was so critical for you in defining, what your career path would be.
What about you, Kim?
Yeah, I personally did not have an internship. I kind of fell into insurance, as I mentioned, although we also have a great intern program at Connecticut. And Connecticut is part of the Emblem Health family of companies, which there's actually 4 companies that are part of the Emblem Health family, and we have internship programs at all of them. And I have had the pleasure of having a number of interns over the years, and it's really a great way for people to learn about, what happens in the area they're working in, what happens in the company. I think it's a great way to kind of check, do you like this? And as we've all mentioned, we were all very pleasantly surprised by where we ended up. And I think if you can have that experience early on through an internship, that's great, because it's just as important to know what you don't necessarily like or want to do as it is what you do want to do and what you like. And the more experiences that you have, the better qualified you are to make that determination. So I think internships are very valuable.
Absolutely.
And I've hired some great people who were my interns.
Me too.
So really good. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think the 3 of you mentioned that your organizations do offer internship programs. So for folks that are tuning in, where can they go to find more information about those? Or do you have like a little synopsis of what the requirements might be?
Yeah, I can jump in. So certainly at any company's website, I would highly recommend that if there's an organization you're interested in, that you go to their website. They likely have intern information there. I'm sure through school, through your career program, they're forever providing information on internship opportunities that may be of interest. And in this interesting hybrid, in-person, remote environment that we're in, you may get exposure, if you're not local to the Connecticut area, to an internship. We ran a hybrid program last summer where we had 17 interns throughout the organization, and we'll continue to grow and build that every year. We've had an actuarial internship for many years, as most insurance carriers have, but we've expanded it company-wide. We had marketing intern, and we had legal interns, and we had HR even. Just as Kim had said, I hired one of our entry-level individuals who came from the internship program. So highly recommend that you take a look at company websites.
Absolutely. Travelers has a very robust internship program, and I can't even speak to it well enough because I'm not engaged. I'm not the chief human resource officer. What, I can't remember what your title is, Jackie.
Yep, same idea.
But I know we have a great one if you go to travelers.com, and it is a big feeder for us. Lots of people looking. I usually get the phone calls from people who are applying, and it's a great opportunity, the summer internships, to get your foot in the door, and like Jackie said, and like Kim said, like just to experience something. And even if it's, you realize at the end of the summer, it's not what you wanted, then you at least know, like, okay, that's not the area I want to go into. But definitely encourage people to go to travelers.com and check it out.
Yeah, awesome. I will always forever be grateful for having that internship opportunity, because it did lead to this great career that I love so much. So now pivoting back to your current roles. So now that you're in your organizations, how do you stay relevant to your boss, to your team, and just in the overall ecosystem of your organization?
Well, I can start. I think that centers around continuous learning. For us at Connecticut, we are big proponents of continuous learning. And on my team, especially, insurance changes especially being on the health side, there's all kinds of change in regulation, legislation, all kinds of things. And so it's really important to stay on top of that and just keep learning about your area, whatever it is you're doing. And that will help you stay relevant.
Yeah, I completely agree. We all talked about how our jobs change and every day is different. You know, a day in the life, it's like you can't explain one day because the next day will be different. And so, you know, reading as much as you can and listening and getting exposure throughout an organization as much as you can, attend meetings that you might not normally wonder, why do I sit in an investment committee meeting? Because I want to learn how that process works and understand how that affects the organization. And you become much more relevant to and valuable to the person you work for and to the organization when you are very open-minded and not, you know, tunnel vision about what it is that you're doing. And you can do that at a very entry level coming into an organization. Just especially larger companies, they're forever having opportunities to attend this seminar and attend that and listen to this and listen to that and just do it as much as you can. And the more you learn and the more open-minded you are, the more relevant you become because you're making connections to your role throughout the organization. And that's when it's fun because it's just so interesting and challenging.
Absolutely. I mean, these two women said it perfectly. It's continuous learning and it's knowing your business. And I think this virtual world has lent a very nice opportunity for people because I know at Travelers, like everything is on our intranet. And so I can go look at a town hall from another business line 2 weeks after it happens and learn what did they do? What did they talk about? What happened? There's so much content that I can access to learn about my company. It's remarkable. And frankly, I don't have enough time, but every time I do that, I do make a new connection with either a person or a topic I'm working on. And that's how you remain valuable and relevant to your organization. So I highly recommend just always having an open mind. Schooling never ends. You never stop learning.
Yeah.
Gotta keep
so true. Well, we're getting close to our 30-minute mark, but I just wanted to open up the floor to see if you have any final advice for the folks that are tuning in, any words of wisdom per se. So we'll start off with Kim.
Sure. My advice is put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to meet people, to network. If you are working at your first job or a change of job and you see something that you think you could do well, take the initiative, put yourself out there, take the initiative, and every person you meet, every experience you have, you'll learn something from. So regardless of how it goes, it's a way to grow.
Absolutely. Jackie?
And feed in, in agreement with that and building off of that, because I'm sure what Kim said, I agree with, and whatever Courtney's going to say, I know I will as well. So this isn't to say, this is a different thought, but the idea is to be your authentic self, right? Be who you are. And it's tricky coming out of school and applying for jobs and coming into a place that you may never have, been before and aren't certain of how the business is run, but it's okay. Nobody's expecting you to know things that you wouldn't know coming out of college. And it's okay to say, what is that? And what does that mean? And to learn in that way and being who you are and being comfortable with knowing you don't know everything because there's no way you could. Is kind of refreshing for those of us that are working with, new employees. And so don't be afraid to ask questions Be curious, and say you don't understand, because that's how you learn. And we've all been there, and we still are.
Courtney?
Yeah, Kim and Jackie are so eloquent. They really just said both of what I was thinking, which is number one, network. Like, don't be afraid to say, can you meet me for a cup of coffee? Can we have a Zoom call? Whatever it is, pick people's brains. Anyone that you think is interesting, or a job you think is interesting. People like talking about themselves. Like, ask for that cup of coffee. Most people will do it. But also what Jackie said, which is you also have to be authentic. Like, it's not just about accumulating business cards, which people don't do anymore, but it's not just about like knowing, having whatever 300 people on LinkedIn. It's about actually being who you are and trying to find your path, whatever that ends up being. So they said it beautifully.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for such an amazing conversation. I'm so happy that I was able to moderate this panel with such powerhouses such as yourselves. And that'll do it for us. For everyone watching at home, that wraps up our day one. Tomorrow is going to be our day two, same time. You will get an email with the invitation with the link. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. And thanks again to our panelists who were amazing. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.